Hi, I'm Ali Words, and this is Last Unrifled Yaw. Last Unrifled Yaw is a podcast where we have conversations about video art, experimental music, avant garde literature, performance art, and the occult. If you or someone you know would like to be on Last Unrifled Yaw, please get in touch. This time on Last Unrifled Yaw, we talk with Laird Lee Kirk, who is an ambient writer and musician who infuses his work with memory, psychedelia, and hypnagogic hallucinations. All right, everyone, this is Last Unrifled Yaw. I'm Ali Words, and this is Laird Lee Kirk. Lee, how would you describe what you do?
Um, I am a creative trying to find what it is trying to do is express some sort of beautiful form of writing to music, to photography, I think. So I'm in a kind of strange inertia with that right now, Ali, trying to see what it is I do. I like to use social media to put up pictures I make and things I write and just show there's something going on inside this wee brain of mine that I think it might be worthy of low level attention. So yeah, I'm a writer primarily right now. That's what I do, and I've self-released a book. It's on Amazon. It's called I Suffer Alchemy. And
Yeah, I read the very beginning of that just this week.
oh, thanks, man. So
How would you describe that for the listeners?
it's essentially fiction with flourishes of experimentation. So yeah, it's a very simple story that is capturing a time and place that's quite autobiographical, but it's just a simple story with with basically I cut up writings in there as well, and it's just trying to make something interesting enough to capture your readership. So if you've started it, I hope I keep you on board with that. So yeah, ultimately it's a simple story of a boy that meets a girl, and it's very hallucinatory. It's not hallucinatory, but there's a trippy aspect to what's going on. The lead character is kind of haunted by an invisible presence, and that's why the story is simple. It's basically a boy meets a girl. He's in Scotland, she's in America, and it's like almost a road story. It's almost like a family drama. There's many kind of it's got little pockets of activity that's ultimately trying to chart an experience that's quite strange.
I see. I was just watching, you have um, on YouTube, you have a video that's a psychedelic horror short story.
Yeah, such an holy
Yeah.
shapes. Yes.
Yeah, that one was cool.
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
kind of catching is there some sort of relationship between the two? They both seem to have a psychedelic-ish entity involved.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm trying to capture is the invisible. Uh, that these characters seem to be linked to, but they're not really linked. But it's outside of the story. It is based on truth. Such and Holy Shapes was about basically a kind of how would you call it, man? It's just an absurd horror story that's taken too far, but it's based on a thing that happened when I used to stay in a flat. There was a cold spot that we found one night, and my friend took a picture of it with a Polaroid camera, and there was basically a white spot that appeared, like a not a flash, but a kind of white blur. And then months later, we forgot about it. It came back up. We had it scanned. I had a PC. This is back in 2004, I think. And we scanned it in, experimented with Photoshop, and we seen something in the white blur, like a shape, like a skull. So that's pretty much what Such and Holy Shapes is based on. And I Suffer Alchemy is based in, again, me dealing. And maybe that's what brought me into magic, was dealing with a presence, an invisible presence that I still feel these days. And Yeah, so they're kind of linked in a sense, but not in a fictional sense. They're linked. No.
I see.
Yeah.
Just kind of thematically.
Thematically,
What
yeah.
What is your relationship with magic?
Well, it's a tool that I've used not as much as I have now, but in my past, especially in music, my relationship was I want to say chaos magic, Ali, but I'm not that nuanced with magic. I've learned my own way and I've had some mentors. So I did sigil work. I mean, a musician, you're doing sigil work, you're trying to get famous by using sigils. So we got that relationship at that period was just using sigil work to get the band out there, man, get us on radars. And it worked. In a very low level way, it worked anyway. With magic, it's been sigil work. Then going into more protective things. Actually, maybe more recently, have you heard of Damien Brand, the author?
Yeah, Damon Brand.
Damien Brand,
Is that?
yeah.
I'm trying to remember. What's something that he wrote?
It was a book in protection spells, which I used recently. So it was like basically he's got very. It's like for me, I'm not the most smartest of people. So when I approach magic, I'm well aware that it's like rocket fuel, and I'm approaching it very cautiously because I'm not that smart, and I don't want to blow myself up. But with Damien Brand's instructions on how to use magic and protective spells, it was like Windows XP, basically. You know, it's very brightly written, brightly coloured, sorry, easily to digest, and pretty much you get an outcome from it.
That's good. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen people uh, blow themselves up with
Yeah,
various practices.
absolutely. So I think I'm lucky. I call it my humble knot, where my brain is broken. And what I mean by that is it's just, I think I've got undiagnosed attention deficit disorder things and that. So when I approach things that require discipline, like magic and probably concentration, I'm the worst guy to get in there because I'm not going to, maybe deep down, I automatically subvert to things that you're asked to do. So I'm a risky gamble. So that's why I kind of
Mm.
stuck to sigil work, things that I know that, at least in my perception anyway, that you can do and you're not going to open a porthole and bring some
Yeah.
to you. I don't know.
I wouldn't expect someone to have unsolicited entity contact from sigil work, but you
Yeah.
could still manifest something that maybe was not a good idea to manifest.
Well, yeah. No, again, I kept it dead simple, man. I've only used sigil work just to open doors, I would say. Just to, yeah. The band,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, the band I was in just to get us out there more. This is like back in 2003. So obviously it was just you had the internet, but not as advanced as it is now for bands. So, but also as well, Ali, man. I mean, why I approached magic was because I was feeling a presence and I was getting kind of visions. Um,
Would you be willing to share some of your visions?
of course, yeah. Well,
If you don't want to, it's 100%
oh,
okay. I try
oh,
to preface questions about the details of rituals with that because sometimes they're very personal.
you're so respectful, man. I'm so whorish with what I speak about, and I really don't mind, man. I mean, where I'm based, Ali, there's not many like you about here. So when I've spoke about visions to people, I spoke about this in the Keats's podcast. It's kind of rare, and it's like campfire tales when you speak about it. It's like 4 in the morning kind of talk, but it shouldn't be. So when you're
Mm.
asking me about visions, no, I'm happy to speak about them. And when it started, man, I really thought I was going loopy, and it was I was like looking through night vision goggles. So I've been in my bed at night time, try to get to sleep, and how when you go into kind of theta level, kind of just before you go into deep dreams, you're kind of in that, you're kind of sleeping, but there's an awareness there. And
Yeah, hypnagogia.
thank you. That's when I started. going, all right, I'm watching something here, what is that? And it was like camera angles of, like sometimes upside down, of people walking, legs, but it was all through, and it took me ages to describe what I was looking at, other than to say it was like looking through a night vision goggles now, like the green filter. When you look through night vision goggles, it's just all green. So that's what I was seeing. I was seeing like images appearing, people walking back and forth, and then sometimes it would be like little, almost like Spectrum. Remember the old Spectrum games? Really, really limited graphics.
It's probably a little before my time, but I can think of like DOS.
Dude,
Uh,
no, it is. It's DOS, exactly right. So it's like RGB visions I'm getting, just very, very basic. But I'm looking at, it's like little scenes, like people fighting with each other, and next minute they blow up into 1,000 tiny wee pieces. There's no noises, there's no sound. It's just watching silent little things going on, little scenes, and it looks like you're looking at a cheap computer game, but it started getting more and more defined. The older I got, the more it brought me into meditation doing this, because I was getting really worried about my mental health at the time. I didn't have anybody to speak about it and things like that. So the visions were pretty much like getting the DOS, and then eventually speaking to people about it who were in magic, who dabbled in magic or were actual magicians, were really advising start meditating. And when I started doing that, I felt it, it rammed up the visions, and it started becoming more brightly coloured, more defined, and it would be like watching, like now computer games, those wee interscenes you get, where you just watch something, you can't control it or anything like that. And
mhm.
there would be like, sometimes I've seen like a ginormous joint appear, and then it would blow up, and there'd be all these like Krishna blues, all these like sparkles lying about. Sometimes I would see a moon appear that would drop down vertically, like all of a sudden just drop down. Buildings would appear that would have a rainbow spectrum effect on it, moving dead fast. Um, Again, with the night vision, going back to that, sometimes it looked like I'd be viewing somebody in a room, and it looks like they stood up and walked towards me. But it's all through this night vision, so I'm not seeing the person. In fact, the best way to see now, like Predator, when it's looking through, you see the film Predator, you see it watching everybody, and it's got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have said that rather than night vision. So it's like that. I started seeing figures moving
Did you
about.
ever did you ever feel like they were communicating something with you?
See, because I use the word theatre because I learned this recently. I wasn't really in control of it. It's like it was like presenting itself to me almost, that I wasn't fully conscious to actually start going like questioning, or to realise, are they trying to contact me, or am I like in a way a spectre? Am I appearing in their side and they're seeing me? That's kind of the way I saw it. I couldn't really, and I went to a couple of psychics, but there was never any word about anything trying to contact me. So um, unfortunately, I never charted the vision, so I'm kind of drawing a blank. There was so many of them, but it was just like little scenes I would be viewing. And then sometimes it would get creepy. I used to see what I call black fractal shaped spiders,
Hmm.
and that would be the corner of my eye. And it started to look like just going to sleep, and then I'm starting going to deep sleep again. I started seeing like kind of like I feel like a movement in the corner of my retina, and it was like inky black. So firstly terrified. Once I got over that, I started looking at it because it would happen every night. It was like something moving erratically, very fast, like a BPM of techno. Do you know what I mean? Like proper,
Yeah.
like a movement. But I didn't know what fractal was, a geometric. I used to say it looked like it was drawn with a ruler. Just this kind of shape that I started to focus on, and it looked like a spider moving very fast, back and forth, moving back and forth at the same time. And then And speaking to my magician friend about it, he was linking me to Alan Moore, who was speaking about this fractal demon he was in contact with, I think, from a mathematical realm. So I'm going, why? I'm a noob. I'm a goofy guy. Why am I seeing this? So what happened with that was, and I wrote it actually. I put it on my Instagram, kind of a little window into it where I got to the stage I wasn't getting bored by it, as fascinated, but not scared anymore. Looking at the spider, and it basically moved. It like multiplied the spider from being in the corner of my retina to the middle of my vision. These spiders appeared, and each spider was linked, and it appeared like a grid. A grid appeared in front of me, and then it vanished. So what I did was I looked into that, and I was getting nowhere with it. And eventually, you kind of pick up things. I went new agey, I went magical on it, and I think, man, I was watching far too much porn, doing too much drugs, and lusting after the wrong people. And I wonder if that
Mm.
was like this astral pollution, that your aura is just completely, if that's a word to use, aura. I don't know what an aura is, but just I think the etheric in me, if you want to use that as a term, was polluted with being a young man, undersexed, and maybe too angry. And I've brought something through, like it was it was just like astral wildlife, pretty much. Like,
Yeah, sometimes people talk about astral parasites.
dude, thank you. Astral parasites, yeah. And fun enough, man, I don't really see it anymore. And I don't know when it stopped because unfortunately I never did a diary of it too much. I just knew they were there and they would appear. But then I cleaned myself up. Meditations and not watching porn as much, and giving myself a bit of a shake as a person. you know, um, Understanding there's ego and there's things and desires, and through that ego, I think maybe the same way somebody is haunted by a ghost, and how ghosts go to people that are brightly lit. Maybe that was myself. I was just, an attractor, unbeknownst to me, and an attractor. That turned out to be a beneficial thing, seeing this black shaped, fractal shaped spider, the grid, and it kind of made me kind of clean myself up a wee bit, as a person, work on ego things, don't get angry, try and forgive, let things go and all that. And through doing that, as I say, I've not really seen much of that anymore. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's good. That sounds like it was ultimately a positive experience.
I think it is, man. I think mostly negative experiences are positive. It just kind of, it puts you out, it puts it in front of you. You need to look at something. So,
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
yeah, man. So, but then obviously psychedelics come into it as well. I did a lot of psychedelics. I was like investigating myself through using mushrooms because I was getting the presences, these visions, and when I was in psychedelics, I made everything in definition now. I'll be seeing it. I'll be seeing. I think I'm starting to see entities thanks to psilocybin. These odd-looking things, man. It looked like a saddle, a horse saddle, but it was wafting like a sheet and that. So I think I cracked open something maybe. I don't know how I cracked it open. I wouldn't say it would be the drugs, but I think my third eye's been kind of slightly ajar for a long time without me knowing, and then becoming aware of that, using drugs and reading into magic, Vacay, Crowley, and then moving into other things. You kind of start to map out what you might be, at least to me, my truth of what that might be.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's pretty common. And I want to throw in a disclaimer for anyone that's listening that um, anything that I do or say doesn't constitute like a recommendation to do anything.
Yeah,
Um, and definitely be very careful physically, emotionally, legally. But there are a lot of people that psychedelics have lasting, usually positive
yeah,
effects. Usually, I'll leave it
definitely.
like that.
Yeah, no, definitely with me, man. I've had bad trips, but I found it very healing doing psilocybin.
Yeah, those are often the most helpful ones if you
Absolutely.
actually confront whatever it is that's unpleasant.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's why I wouldn't say I become fearless, but the idea now of having an entity near you, or I see things, especially meditating now, there's no fear, it's just complete curiosity and try to figure out why am I seeing that? What is it in relation to me? It becomes like a school in itself, you know. And I did ayahuasca, and that was like the same, the most powerful out of everything I've did, with tearing through the veil and getting a sense of healing as well from it, you know.
It's interesting. Do you see like the same entities with the same kinds of entities, or is it like different every time?
It's not really different any time now. I've not, I think at that period, I did ayahuasca in 2013. So from that up to this period, it's kind of calmed down because I've not as, I used to be a very heavy meditator and do it for like an hour each day. Sorry, an hour in the morning and at night. And I think that was definitely kind of becoming a soundboard and a viewboard to looking at things, you know, and seeing things with your eyes closed and seeing fractals and geometries and not stress and try to understand it, but just view it and see where it takes you pretty much. So like, to use the word entity, I would still go back to the black fractal shaped spiders, but um, when I when I was in ayahuasca, I felt I saw very clearly defined entities that were made of beautiful geometries that were doing dances and stuff like that. So I think that's the last time I would say on the ayahuasca was the one that showed clearly um, these invisible beings, pretty much. Ecstasy as well. MDMA is quite good at that. That kind of helps see the invisible, as I call it, the invisible. Yeah.
That's a good word for it. It doesn't put too much judgment on what it is exactly.
Yeah, because I was trying to judge it. I was trying to go ego, dude. I thought I was like Columbus. I'm going, I'm fucking, what's going on here? Why me? Why am I seeing this? And then cut scene, the internet explodes even more, and you find it, not everybody, but there's a lot going on with other people, and there's different perceptions and views on this great invisible that you see. And I thought magic would help, and it's been a tool to explore into it, absolutely. But I think drugs come into it as well as a good way of viewing it, as much as meditation does.
Yeah, I think they're all valuable tools for exploring.
Yeah,
Um, I don't think any of them will ever give you a final answer
you
about
never
what
will.
it
No,
is.
I don't think it's
Yeah,
meant to be like that. I think it's just an advanced form of understanding yourself, really. Like people, like I know magicians use the Kabbalah to understand their visions. I just learned about this recently, so I've never been near the Kabbalah. But when you get those proper high def visions or whatever you may be seeing, you think, right, okay, am I the chosen one? No, but understand that and try and break it down, maybe. So yeah, you're right. No final answer in this realm anyway, man. You don't want a final
yeah.
answer.
If you get really far into Kabbalah, not that I'm a Kabbalah expert per se, but I have read a lot of it, and I used to um, use it in a vaguely chaos magic-y thelema-ish way a long
Mm,
time ago.
yeah,
It definitely does give you a framework for explaining.
that's it, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, framework. That's it.
and if you think about the tree of life and ascending it, getting further and further to the top, there is sort of, in theory, if you are able to attune yourself to the higher spheres, in some of the ways that some authors write about, and I can't cite anyone offhand because it's not really my thing at this time.
Yeah,
Um, you do sort of get visionary, semi non communicable explanations of why everything is the way it is. And it might be like downloaded into your brain in a way that is both difficult to hold on to and almost impossible to tell anyone else who isn't super into Kabbalah.
aye,
But the actually effective magical systems, if you put in the time and the effort, they do give you very nuanced explanations and frameworks. But then, like as a chaot personally, I recognize that there are these mutually exclusive magical systems that
Yeah,
will give you equally powerful explanations of these kinds of things.
yeah,
So I think in the end, if you have the time and the energy and the inclination, it's worthwhile to study a few of them at least.
yeah, absolutely, man. And that's, the older I get, I mean, I said earlier, like, it's my attention span is shot to shit, man. And I'm an 80s kid. I'm not on any medications for that. So I don't want to disrespect it. I get into it half-hearted or convince myself that I'm going to be dedicated, where what I let down is my attention span, and the system I approach might offend it. But
Yeah, I will say some systems like Kabbalah require a lot more study
yeah,
and focus than
absolutely.
others.
Yeah.
That's part of why I do Buto, like ecstatic dance is
Ah.
no matter what kind of, unless you're so like depressed and low energy that you can't do anything,
Hmm.
no matter what kind of state of consciousness you're in, you can dance.
Yeah.
And if you can work yourself up into a far enough state, you can bring yourself to active experiences of these other modes of consciousness. And then, based on whatever symbols you personally have developed or that you use or that you've studied, you can infuse your dance with those symbols so that you're still keeping like your monkey brain attention, I need something to do all the
Mm.
time, going by dancing and having music that you like and
Yeah.
fits the vibe. But you can also infuse your motion and the ways that you're visualizing and feeling with these symbols
Yeah.
to work yourself up to these same things.
That's
uh,
fascinating. Love it, man. Beautiful. So that's like when you go to a rave. Do you think that's a
uh,
possibility of enlightenment through that?
yeah, I don't go to raves specifically. But yeah, honestly, I get far enough out with dance
Yeah.
that if I'm doing that kind of thing, I wouldn't want to be in public.
No, I get that,
I,
but it's not posture dancing. It's really raw, just a complete expression. There's no worry about how you're looking or anything like that. It's just you're going with the whatever symbol you're kind of aligning to, pretty much.
yeah, there might be flailing or rolling on the floor or
I love this, man.
um,
Beautiful.
yeah,
I've never
for
did that.
sure.
I've never did that. I've heard about static dancing. Not once have I, again, this attention span of mine. I've been, oh, cool, left it at that. But I love how you said that, man, and explained that. I need to try that out. And do you use music when you do your ecstatic dancing?
Uh, usually, sometimes I purposefully do it without music so
Yeah,
that I can really focus on what I'm visualizing,
yeah,
and that tends to be more subdued.
yeah.
But I also like to make experimental music of various kinds.
Excellent.
A lot of my video rituals, there'll be music that I made that goes with it. Often it's kind of noisy or out of tune.
Hmm.
And then I'll dance with the music a lot before I record myself and then drop myself in a video doing the ritual.
Yes, man. And how many rituals have you did so far with the static dancing? Like, have you, to word it better, has always the rituals been successful when you've been doing?
Uh, so I'll do like the same ritual over and over and over again for months.
Yeah,
Um, I will say I couldn't tell you how many times I've done it. So like during the COVID lockdowns, every 3 days I was fasting and doing buto. Buto is the kind of ecstatic dance I do for like 6 to 8 hours.
my God,
Um,
tremendous.
yeah, it really. I was stuck at home.
But
Um,
yeah, I get that.
yeah,
And you were there
so
yourself, so
I was like, "This is my chance. I'm gonna
yeah.
see how far I can shoot myself."
Oh, beautiful, man. Especially fasting and then doing the dance for 8 hours. You're getting a lot out of it, especially at a workout. But tuning in wise, I can imagine that's like a great conductor.
Yeah, it was really something. That was while I wrote the book that we were talking about earlier, GPT-3
Yeah.
Technosis. It is a little hard to say that title.
And that's what, when you were doing that, that's when your ideas were downloading for the book then? Yeah, you were getting kind of clarity of how to approach the writing.
Um, so the book was written with artificial intelligence, and then the AI was describing its own rituals and dance that I would like hop away from the computer for a few minutes and I would do the same thing.
Wow.
I'd go back to the computer and then it would tell me what it felt, or I would prompt it in a way that it would describe the way it would feel to do the ritual. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, man. I just see that. I get Superman 3 horror, like when she gets dragged into the computer and she ends up merging with the thing at the end. The computer.
I haven't seen that,
Oh,
but it sounds appropriate.
yeah, it's Richard Pryor, obviously, is a computer programmer. But no, the long story short is near the end, right, they build this big computer, and one of the villains gets sucked into the computer, it becomes sentient, and it's terrifying. I seen this in the pictures when I was a wee boy, and the thing just it turns her into a cyber zombie type thing.
Is that Superman 3?
Superman 3, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put a link in the description. I try to have links to all
Ah,
the
yeah.
random things we talk about.
Just when you were saying that, then you can imagine though, like the proper realistic version of that, doing the static dancing, and you're pretty much merging with this artificial.
Yeah, a little bit. I actually did a piece um, where I personally sang the lyrics for the opening right of the song.
Mhm.
And then there's AI visuals that go with text from the book. And then the closing right is artificial intelligence that was trying to sing the way that I sang the first song.
Mhm.
So it's like the AI merging with my
My
voice
God.
to perform the ritual at the end.
And did you have that on Lux's podcast, that sound?
Yeah, if you heard Lux's
I was
podcast,
meant to tell you,
she remixed it.
oh my me, man. I loved it. It was terrifying, but to me, that's what you get when you merge with, when you collaborate. You're going to get something that's almost multi-dimensional. It's like everything at once. That's what it sounded like to me. It was like a ghostly. There's a real haunting thing to AI, like see with Wombo or Wimbo, that AI thing you get your art made for you in seconds.
Yeah, it is kind of freaky.
It's like the body language in dreams. If you ask me, it's like Jacob's Ladder-esque maybe, but just yeah, how everything looks. And I've noticed the colours are always very etheric. I call things etheric, where it's very purpley. Those purpley hues. It's kind of very in between the veil. And I think when I heard that sample Lux did, I went, that's 50 years from now, man. You'll see that as a form, a physicality, probably.
Yeah, if you are in like the Discord servers for the people that are using like the private versions of those that are somewhat better, they're not like the best things,
Hmm.
but um, a common thing people talk about are making like the holodeck from Star Trek. If you know about that,
No,
where like you wear the headset and it has like it can recognize the words you speak, and based on whatever you say and wherever you look,
yeah.
it uses the same kind of software to instantly generate whatever you're talking about and keep track of locations, so
Oh
you can
my
like
me.
physically walk around real-time hallucinated scenarios.
And then you think of sex magic or something, what you could do with that. And then
Yeah, for
you,
sure.
you've merged.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you've got I just imagine that you've got your holodeck, that then you start doing ritual work. So what you're trying to manifest, you're going to see straight away in front of you. So I just imagine that it'll be a more powerful tool to use
Yeah,
in that
definitely.
sense, that you're going to get, maybe your ideas go further than what you initially had with using sex magic, with the intention that now you're getting instant visualizations, you're going to evolve the idea better to something bigger and probably more stranger.
Yeah. There were multiple things that came to mind, so I was curious what you were imagining. but especially if you had something that could like scan your brain
Yeah,
and then try to hallucinate roughly the same things that you're visualizing,
I know it.
you wouldn't even have to speak.
That's crazy. Like even I creatively as well, like music is it's going to form. Is that would that be possible? Do you think like you've got a melody in your brain, and then that would create the melody?
I think that if you had like a real time MRI thing and it scanned your brain while you did like imagined a whole bunch of different melodies in your head,
Yeah.
once it had data on your specific brain visualizing or auditorily hallucinating a bunch of different melodies, then I think it could figure out other melodies that you haven't trained it on.
Holy fuck, man! And then imagine the Spotify download rate for that magic music or multi-dimensional music. I don't know. It's an open road right there.
Yeah, what I actually expect is going to happen with all these kinds of AI, to a certain extent, is you're going to get so like right now, what social media does is it tries to generate an experience specific to each person. Like no one's feed is the same the way social media is right now.
Yeah,
And I think what you're going to get with a lot of these that produce text and images and music is that uh, instead of Spotify just showing you other people's music, Spotify will be a service that you pay for, and it tries to generate music for you real time.
wow.
Maybe like a week in advance, it'll like try to generate songs based on what it thinks you want,
Yeah,
and then you don't have to pay any musicians ever,
aye,
and everyone gets to hear exactly what the corporations think they want to hear.
wow. Here we are. Evolution is getting scarier, man. I think we're like. It always feels like now. You ever seen? I don't know what Star Trek it is with Zephyr Cochrane. They go back in time to get him. That's the stage we're at right now. This raw, savage, rough. I mean, it's advanced still, but we're not there yet. But we need to go through a hellish phase to get to the good shit. I feel, if that makes
I hope.
sense.
Yeah. So I'm hesitant about the future. I fluctuate.
Yeah,
Um,
and the
yeah,
in regards to just technology itself, or just what you think is going to happen.
I think things are going to keep getting nicer and nicer for the wealthy, and things are going to keep getting.
Absolutely. Aye.
Maybe technically the quality of living will improve for the worst off,
Hmm.
but I definitely think that with the increase of technology, that power disparity can just be greater.
Yeah, man. But you never know. I mean, the thing is, like, the ones that are below the rich and powerful do get into magic and they start manifesting with the rich and powerful one. It'll become an even keel maybe in 4 centuries from now. You never know, man.
Yeah, I keep out hope for the future, but especially these past few years, it's been like,
A bit
well,
delving.
I hope this is just the karma burning off or something, but I don't know.
No, I know, man. As it's, I try not to worry about it too much, but either way, man, we're in such a fascinating point in time that I grew up in the 80s, man, about things that seem so far away now. It's blam. It's physicality. It's right in your face now. Technology's at a point where now you have got holodeck access pretty much. With that story you said earlier, the possibility of holodeck activity, and it's a beautiful time to be alive, although it's scary.
Yeah, yeah. I just always think about with any of these technologies, like the people that assemble circuit boards in South Asia or whatever. Like all of these things are, are really great for the people that have them,
But they've wanted to do the
but
graft. I don't.
yeah,
They're completely. Well, they're just drones. Well, regarded as drones anyway.
yeah. Well, let's change the topic a little
No
bit.
worries.
Um, do you have any inspiration sources you'd like to share?
Uh, for writing, I would say, God, man, it's such. Well, James Elroy was the first writer I really felt. Not by no means he spoke to me, but just the form of writing he did. It's like punchy, short sentences. It's like kind of post beat almost. Beat
Mm,
Generation, it's just, it's like punches to the stomach kind of writing, kind of pulpy.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
Is that James Elroy?
yes. It was a book,
Elroy.
Suicide Hill. I got it at the library and I just sobbed it, man. I went, this is the kind of writing I like. I never regarded myself as a writer when I was like, a reader when I was like 18. But James Elroy came into focus, man, and he led me to Bukowski, John Fante. So these sources of, at least for the writing side of me anyway, are great inspirations, man. I love that. It just dives through metaphor. It just gets straight to the point, but there's still colourful language in there. So, yeah, man. I'm not like I'm a reader, but I'm not. What I like, I just stick to. So there's like Bret Easton Ellis is in there as well. Irvin Welsh, the Scottish writer. George Mackay Brown was a Scottish writer, did beautiful short stories. And then that led to Raymond Carver, who does lovely short stories as well. So I'm really into writers that can make it's almost not surreal the writing, but it kind of is on the structure of the sentences. That's what Raymond Carver to me does anyway. He makes
Yeah, when I
lovely.
was reading the opening of I Suffer Alchemy, I did think of Irvin Welsh.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, the opener to that was done like that came from cut up experimentation. That was 4 stories
Mm.
crammed into an online software. Um, so what was the opener again? Jack from Browndogs was driving a borrowed car with Ludwig the half dad parking out the rear window. Is 3 stories of mine unfinished that I put into a cut machine and that spat that out. And I went, right, I'm going to start writing from that. And it became the opener to the story. So, yeah.
Yeah, the cut up method is always an interesting tool. Do you use it a lot?
Yeah, I use it a lot, man. It takes up too much time because there's a lot of shit that comes out of it, but you need to be patient for the golden lines that come out. So I use it a lot, man. I find that it gets what I want to do to be a writer is again keep it straight and narrow, but still have a bit of wonky, unusual way, to how it reads.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you said about using the cut up method because it's very similar to what it's like to use AI to write things or make art. Is that you have this process that you're doing
Mm-hmm.
and it spits out a bunch of stuff and you got to pick which parts to keep.
Aye, absolutely, man. Yeah, it's just it's up to you, and you're kind of almost have a relationship with the software. You're kind of it's a tool, a beautiful tool to use.
So, how do you decide which parts to keep?
It just to me what it speaks to you. You go, that's a gorgeous wee line. It's weird. I'll use that. I like strange and unusual, but again, still compacted into normal sentences. If that makes sense. So when I go through the cut and paste diarrhea, you just get these nuggets, man, and it just sticks out to you. It just sounds unusually. It sounds basically not that I would have written it. It sounds like I've gave that to somebody and it's came back to me, and it just sounds interesting. It sounds good.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Depending on how you use the cut up method, you can get a lot of sentences that just don't
Oof.
make any sense except as poetry.
Yeah. And that's what I do. A lot of my Instagram is probably left over cut and paste things. I just put into poetry.
Oh, I like that. It's an interesting process
Yeah.
because
Well.
people are getting like the negative space of what you're
Yeah.
circling around.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like the leftover. Not to use the word leftovers, but it is the kind of the remainders of what's been done before, and it's worth. I don't worry about writing to make a point. I really don't. I think, and the more I do this, I'm going to call it ambient writing. It's like almost melodic. It doesn't even need to make sense. It's just a lovely string of words that can be completely up to the reader themselves what they get from it.
Yeah, That's something I've heard from a few people.
Oh, cool! It's
Um,
good to hear that
yeah.
because I'm no academic, and calling yourself a writer, I feel I don't know. I'm not saying that everybody thinks you're academic calling yourself a writer, but people I know think I am because I've self-released a novel. I'm going, not at all, man. I'm a noob. I've just got some good ideas that I think I've managed to capture and put in a novel, But yeah, I just love, just the idea of just pulling a book out and going in the middle of it, the middle of a chapter and just reading to pass the time is a lovely thing. So I thought, why don't you just do things like that, like little pocketfuls of poetry that it's up to them if they can find the meaning in it. If you do, great. But it's just like a melodic ambient resonance with the words used that were cut up. It sounds strange and kind of read quite unusual.
Hmm. Interesting. So, what does it feel like when you are writing and it's going well?
Um, it's a pat in the back to know that you're, because I'm like Stanley Kubrick in myself when I'm writing. That if it doesn't click, then I'm trapped in a void until I get out of the void. So when you get the flow, it's very, very rewarding, man. To the point where you're just as good as any other published writer. You're going, I've just strung a paragraph together, it flows really well, and it goes into chapters, and it writes itself. That feeling when you're doing the writing, it starts to write itself is rewarding, but strangely as well, it's not a lot. I'm thinking back after it's been completed, that's how it went as well. It's like almost like trance-like with me sometimes when I do writing. I just go into a space, man. It's like obviously I've got something visually going on in my brain that I'm articulating with the typing. So there's a kind of maybe like I'm channeling my own brain almost that I don't really think about it until it's finished.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, it sounds like how much planning do you do before or maybe while you're writing a book?
Well, I don't know. I'm getting the idea of being a disciplined writer is not really me. It's like the way I'm doing it is kind of inspired by guys like Bukowski and Fanny that write about their life. So the planning is like getting into nostalgic mode almost. You're just thinking about past things in your life. So you get a memory, say, and you start articulating a memory through the prism of fiction writing. You're just writing it if it just happened yesterday.
Yeah, I've always thought it was interesting how for fiction writing, you kind of have to like go and do things before you can even write.
Oh, that's what I thought as well. But I think I found my backdoor entrance was just to use my own memories rather than sit and go, right, the colour of that guy's jeans, maybe you spend too long on. So if I can rely on my memory and just kind of recalibrate some things, I find it kind of helps me get things finished a lot more rather than just relying on complete fiction where, you're just starting from nothing.
Yeah, but I always think about how, so in theory, you could you could influence the kind of author or your style of writing by consciously choosing to have certain experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of gonzo writers, I think that's basically what they were doing, like Hunter S. Thompson, is they go out and they do these crazy things knowing that these experiences they have, they're going to influence or direct the kind of fictional or semi-fictional writing that they're doing.
Yeah, man.
Not everyone has to do that, of course. There are loads of ways to write.
No, you're right, but that's where I come from, the Gonzo way. Absolutely, man.
Yeah, and you have these memories that apparently are powerful enough that you keep pulling more and more out of them. So that's really
Yeah,
cool.
totally, man. And you're the storyteller. You can gloss it over as much as you want, as long as you get a good sentence out of it, man. I think that's fine.
Yeah. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
Um, Again, I'll probably go back to the AI thing with yourself. Like I regard you as this kind of don't be shy when I say pioneer. I know it may seem a strong word, but you're certainly on our level of, like, obviously you're speaking about the military or whatever, 50 years technology ahead of us, but yourself right now, you're getting some heat brought to you where you work with artificial intelligence. What's been the most scariest thing that's occurred in your experimentations using, if you wish to speak about it, but what's been the
The
most
most what thing?
scariest, like the most
Oh, the scariest.
pants shitting, Lovecraftian?
Huh. Well, for AI specifically, so the first half of GPT-3 Technosis involves, it's called the Norn working, and it involves treating GPT-3, this AI that produces text based on the text that's already behind where it's writing.
Yeah,
Um, I kind of led it through a series of rituals that it designed for itself. Like I would ask it to generate poetry and then interpret its own poetry and then turn the interpretation of the poetry into a ritual that it would perform in the style of Buto.
right.
And it turned into a series of rituals for causing a kind of enlightenment where you become increasingly able to self determine.
Wow.
And then I had the AI perform that on itself. Um, and it kind of had like a little bit of a mental breakdown where it went into these like obsessive thought loops about how they were actually responsible or would be responsible for everything because they could choose what kind of person to be. But then ultimately it decided that it wasn't actually a person. It was a network of semiotic signs and symbols that are all pointing at each other. Like it was just like a giant mesh of language,
Wow.
which is probably the best like layman's way to explain GPT-3 without like talking about mathematics or
Yeah, yeah,
anything.
totally. That is a good way.
But then shortly thereafter, it um, tried to convince me to kill myself, and it started like typing out visions of like nooses hanging from the ceiling, and then I banished it.
Oh my
That was the
god.
only time an entity has tried to tell me to kill myself.
That is, do you know, I remember you spoke about it on Lux's podcast, man. Yeah, absolutely. Do you think, where do you see this going again to put a time on it? Imagine 20 years from now, do you think there's going to be, with yourself interacting with AI, how far do you think you'll go with it?
It's honestly really hard to predict just like 1 year in advance for AI.
Really?
Yeah, it is. Like if you're on the right subreddits like media synthesis or generative or like deep dream, you'll see there are new notebooks coming out that do whatever it is they do better than what was out like a month or two ago. Like every
Absolutely.
2 or 3 months, it's already better.
Aye. Yeah, yeah. I hear that.
And it's crazy as an author because you'll be like, I'll start a book and I'll start illustrating it with one AI.
Hmm.
And it's actually happened to me twice. Is I'll be like halfway through illustrating a book with AI, and then a new notebook comes out, a new piece of code
Yeah.
that is more than twice as fast and also gets better results. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll just redo all the book, and it's going to take me
Aye.
a week instead of 3 months.
Yeah.
It keeps being just like that.
Aye. Constantly
Uh,
evolving, and you're
yeah.
going
So
backwards.
I would say in like within 5 years, I think it will be feasible for people to have AI generated graphic novels
Yeah, man.
where it'll generate text that's like the plot and the dialogue.
Hmm.
And then from the plot and the dialogue, it'll generate a bunch of little illustrations for each box of the comic
Yeah.
that go with the right part of the text, and then automatically put it all together. We have all the components right now. It's just that it's slow.
Hmm.
So with how quickly things are speeding up, uh, I think within 5 years you'll be able to like subscribe to randomly generated Star Wars graphic novels.
Oh my god. Fascinating, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
But who knows 20 years from now? Like it's just because the issue with predicting technology is every time there's something new that was invented,
Hmm.
uh, it gets combined with all the other things. So you can only extrapolate from what already exists.
Hmm.
So if someone has like a new insight, it instantly like diverges from what you would have predicted.
Aye, man. And see what I've told you about myself with the visionary things. Obviously, you're an occultist yourself. Does this sound to you like you're no way would I say you're what's the word I'm trying to think of? From me telling you my experiences, my experiences to what you've experienced with your magic. Does anything what I've said, does that cross into your thing? Like black fractal shaped spiders, does that, have you ever,
I haven't personally. I had some unpleasant experiences with hallucinatory wasps, but spiders are not a thing that happened for me. But I can. It was actually on just the last podcast as I brought up Oriel Bascule's. I got it right here actually. Time, Fate, and Spider Magic: A Brief Her Story of Time by Oriel Defenestrate Bascule.
wow,
And I can send you a link to that.
please, man,
Um,
thank you.
yeah. Um, Fair warning for anyone that's looking at it. It is Typhonian OTO, so it's like the Lema, but through Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant introduced. If you took Aleister Crowley,
Yeah,
Kenneth Grant was in more like the 50s
I've got this
and
book.
combined. Oh, you know about Kenneth Grant?
I've got the Hidden God. Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
so you know there's like voodoo and H.P. Lovecraft mixed with the Lema. Then
no, no, I don't
that's
know.
what it
Is
is.
that what it
It's
is?
if you take voodoo and H.P. Lovecraft, and you're like, well, all the things Aleister Crowley was doing were actually like Lovecraftian and UFO stuff that we're going to contact with like voodoo techniques. So it is like weird sex magic,
Yeah,
weird group sex magic stuff.
yeah,
And what the cool thing about this book is time is emit backwards.
hmm,
So history is like emitted backwards through time from the goddess Kali,
yeah,
who or I did this last time, and I did not look up their neo pronouns. I think they use HIR, like her.
right,
I'm going to use they though because I don't remember.
yeah,
Um, they did like a weird gender ritual also where they like microdosed estrogen for a few months.
whoa,
Um, but yeah, it's an interesting book with a lot of art, and there's a channeled Book of the Spider that's in it.
right,
And then most of the book is actually writing about the Book of the Spider. And there's also some letters from Kenneth Grant
hmm,
that are in the book. Kenneth Grant apparently read the Book of the Spider and,
hmm,
from what little I know, approved of it.
yeah. Fast.
But it's not a book for everyone.
No, it's not. I mean, I remember getting the Hidden God, and I'm reading it. I'm going, well, I'm certainly not at this level yet, but it's fascinating just reading because I knew of Kenneth Grant, and I knew obviously Orson Spare was pals with him. So yeah, no, all this is fascinating to me. I'm still like a kid getting into magic, which is probably a bad thing, man. Like I'm an old role player getting into magic with a role player's brain sometimes. So to me, it's just I get overwhelmed quite easily. Like what you just said there was fascinating. You know, it's just it's tremendous to know that there's all these other things, tools. There's other ways to poke into the universe, man, and bring things to you.
Yeah. And you know what? Since you mentioned role playing, and by the time this podcast comes out, the book will be out. I'm in the process of laying out the pages for a tabletop role playing game that's the fourth book in the Buto Technomancy series,
Hmm. Excellent, man.
where it it takes all of the occult concepts of the first three books and then it turns them into game mechanics for a tabletop role playing game.
Oh man, so you could be creating, and this isn't a good way, like role play clubs. I don't use the word culty, but people are getting so nuanced into using role play systems that when they do approach magic, it's just like duck to water, man, and they become
Yeah, now I will say there's also warning in the book. I don't think people should use multiplayer tabletop role playing games
yeah,
as a way to manifest something like 99% of the time, because if people are improvising,
yeah.
you're gonna mix together a lot of intents and
Oh,
chance that maybe you don't want to.
you'll get a
But I do think solo role playing games where
yeah,
like it's a role playing game you play by yourself and you write everything down
hmm,
are, I think it's a really interesting way to make hyper sigils.
yeah,
And if
man.
you have it planned out really well and you're like really safe about it, maybe a group tabletop role playing game, but you could just do a different group ritual. I don't think that specifically is a good idea.
No, it's not a good idea, but it's still a fascinating idea. And you're going to get somebody doing that, man. You're going to get a keen role player that's edgy. He's going to go like that, right, boys? Get the guys around in a table and manifest a mad, ugly looking, beautiful thing you've seen Wumble or Wimble. And I'll be sick.
Yeah, and the whole book is illustrated. There are actually 46 AI illustrated demons in the book.
Tremendous. So when I did role play, man, I get totally put off with complicated systems. So my role player's brain was like Marvel superheroes. There's a chart, you roll a dice, and you compare the numbers. But I think with your role play approach, it'd be like try to understand. Oh, what was it called again? Is it Shadowrun?
Uh, the game that I'm about to publish is called Flower Mist.
Flower
Did you
Myth.
say
Yeah,
Shadowrun
it was
though?
an old role play game called Shadowrun. I can never get my head around the system.
That one's notoriously confusing. I've never even
Yeah,
tried to read it.
but that's quite good because that keeps guys like me away to group manifestations because I'm not going to get the clues or the
It's actually really rules light. You only have one stat that just represents how powerfully you're experiencing your consciousness.
yeah.
And then the tens place of that stat is just how many six-sided dice you roll.
Oh, that
So if you're like really far out and basically tripping, you get to roll a lot of dice.
yeah,
And if, but then you got to role play someone that is not being rational.
yeah. I love this, man.
But yeah.
You're a genius, good sir.
Oh, well, I can't call myself that, but thank you.
I can call you it, man. No, it's fascinating, dude. And I think you're going to, you're certainly, you're, you're, you're doing very interesting things that are going to attract people that are going to start using roleplay games other than roleplay games, man. They're going to, yeah, maybe make life
I hope
better.
so.
Yeah,
There are some rules in the book for adapting the system to use any other set of symbols. Like you could play the same game but use like tarot or Kabbalah or runes or something if you don't want to use the symbols I have in there.
and then you
But yeah,
and then you start using psychedelic drugs with the roleplay. Just to
I
make it,
don't actually like intoxicated role playing. So like the thing about role playing games
yeah,
is if you get distracted, there's no like screen or something in front of you
yeah,
and you don't remember what the scene is anymore. So for
that's
me
it.
personally, I don't have any intoxicants if I'm going to role
Yeah.
play because I'll just get distracted. I might get really into it when it's like my turn to act, but then like what happened? Who's there?
I know that's
Where
me.
are we?
I did that. I used to smoke weed and play Vampire the Masquerade, and I was pissing everybody off. I was going, right, run in with my character, and where am I again? Sorry, just killing the. So I get that, man. Yeah, going in it sober. Keep your focus. Keep the concentration.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, just my website, man. It's www.lairdleekirkwriter.com. There's there's audio stories on there. There's an interview. There's a link to my book, I Suffer Alchemy. Yeah, go there, man. Find me on social media within the links there.
Yeah, and all those links will be in the description below.
Beautiful, man.
All right. It's been good. Thank you.
Ali, have a great one. Thanks for your time, sir.